Hello, everyone. This is Todd Talks. I am joined by Jonathan Pruitt and Jim Davis of WebDM. And today we're kind of doing a deep dive into the new, the new version of the Artificer on Unearthed Arcana. So, So what do you guys think of the new Artificer?
Well, I mean, just first pass reading and looking at it again, I will say I like it better than the first pass in many regards, and like it less likely in like a couple of regards. But I think it's a step in the right direction.
All right, Jim.
That's my general.
That's your general.
I think that it really captures the flavor of like the 3rd edition Artificer, that classic Eberron Artificer, but it does ask a lot of the player to smooth out some of the rough edges and like make the concept work from like a caster who's not like casting spells, but imbuing the magic into an item and like doing that through their tools. I think if you're a type of player who loves reskinning things, reflavoring things, like really adding your own spin, you might love this class. But if you're not one of those players, then you might find a lot of things that just like rub you the wrong way. That's kind of my first takeaway of it.
Yeah, I can see that. I am one of those players, though.
Right. So there you go. I mean, I am too, right? Like I was all I could think of was, oh my God, I could do this and that and this and oh crap. But I'm sympathetic towards those who don't want to do that in their games.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a dungeon master class, and it's in its own way. Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. It does require the player to use their imagination. I so far have found it to be, I don't know, I really love it, and I find it to be very strong, and challenging isn't the right word. Mm-hmm. I can really sit and think about the Artificer as it is right now, and like come up with ideas and have to think about, okay, what's the new strategy? Especially when I get like an extra attack when I have a magical weapon and I have a turret as well, I become a death machine. So,
I have some questions on that part. I hope we dig into that. But I think it's I mean, I don't want to like veer off 90 degrees into the weeds immediately, but I have some questions about how it works in play. Like, can I make a crossbow that can fire twice around? Or is there a way to like, gain access to a dexterity finesse weapon that's not a dagger in an easy way without having to multi-class or take a feat? Like, those are the kind of questions I have with it. But like conceptually, I love the idea of like this dwarven artificer with a hammer and an axe and like they're imbuing them with magic. And they create the weapons they themselves will wield. I like that part of it. That's really awesome.
Yeah, that double attack definitely makes them they're strong. Like, is there a concern about how strong they are?
I would
they don't
say
feel weak to me.
I don't think that they feel weak. I think for me it feels unfocused. And so right now you could legitimately have a type of character that's like, no, my Artificer is all spells all the time. I'm pure int, not worried about any of my physical stats, and this is all me reflavoring spells as magic items that I'm using. But then I'm not using my extra attack feature as part of my class. I'm mostly relying on like cantrips for damage and things like that, which guess what? Like Artificer has some strong magical damage. And if you want to play like a blaster type, then that, this is a class to take a look at. But then if you're going to go with like a weapon, you've got to you now have a choice. It's almost like you have this huge array of options for yourself, whereas most classes are like, I'm just strength or I'm just dex. Whereas like you could go strength, but then you've just got mostly simple weapons that you're using. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Spear or quarterstaff or something like that might be a strong fit. You've got access to crossbows, but then without crossbow expert, you wouldn't be able to take care of that extra attack. I think it's mostly that it requires the player to think about what kind of character they want to play at first level and stick with it, and not just like, oh, I'm going to dip into this and here and there, and then by the time you've made a lot of choices, you've maybe backed yourself into a corner, and then after hopefully your DM is cool with it and just like let you remake the character the way you want. But it requires some thought, right?
Yeah, they're almost the most complex class Well, they are.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, right? Like
Yeah.
God, this isn't even talking about all the different magic item combinations that you could fit onto right? Like, forget Warlock. Like, this is the customizable class now. That there's a lot.
I was gonna say that. I mean, it feels very warlocky. They get some spells, and then they get these they get infusions instead of invocations. But I don't know. I mean, I do like. I originally was kind of very like meh on the turret. But I mean, I see what it is. It's your spiritual weapon. It's your bonus action attack, just to give you a little extra something, and it comes from a different area. And so I'm a little bit more on that. I just wish you. I think it should be a little bit more customizable than it is. And I would just want my turret to crawl up on my back and literally just be like a backpack gun. I'm sorry, but like that's what I want.
You're gonna get the Predator.
A conversation between you and your Dungeon Master, right? Like, couldn't that be a conversation between you and the Dungeon Master? Like,
I mean, I guess it could if you were strong enough. I mean, it says it's a medium creature that takes up a 5-foot space. Like, how much that weighs? I mean, I guess you could. That's up to debate. But if you were really strong, I wouldn't mind if you were like, I want my turret to just like just crawl up on my back, and then you just have a cannon hanging off your back shooting behind you.
if you want to be the Predator, and you just want to have that shoulder gun that's intelligent. You talk to.
You give it the AI update patch. But yes, the combination of magic items, I think that's the most fun little game of like mini chess inside this character class that there is, because it's a little different than any other class that you don't normally get access to just like that. Like that's a step beyond spells or invocations, and you can come up with some pretty righteous stuff. I mean, it's a lot of fun to think about.
That's why I like it so much. And I think it's way more daring than the first Artificer, Unearthed Arcana, by leaps and bounds.
Most definitely. You're talking about the full class one or the wizard subclass?
No, the full class one.
Okay.
Yeah, with the mechanical servant and all that.
Yeah, and I still was like, okay, if you want to be a gun guy, or and you want to have your giant robot Maximilian servant, that's cool. Or if you want to be like Batman, I mean, it was very simple. I feel like the Artificer is for someone who I kind of feel like the Artificer is like for someone who's been playing D&D a while and wants to do like something challenging, and that requires a lot of thought. I personally am like in love with it, which concerns me. So,
but what you've got there, you've hit on something that I kind of saw, and was one of the areas where I was sort of disappointed with the Artificer, which was that they didn't try for something other than a spells per day, spell slots kind of setup for the way to emulate these effects. And then I go off into this weird territory about how they could be daring and adventurous with new classes, and 5 years into the game, we can get something other than spells per day. There's also like spells per day is solid. People know it. And if you're willing to like think through the implications, you can use the framework for it to still create something new and different. To me, the big questions lie in like, can I counterspell an Artificer as they're casting an infusion? Like, I would be upset if I was an Artificer. Like, no, this is a vial of acid. You can't counterspell it. I just made it. Like, you should have been here last night when I was pouring the chemicals together.
Yeah,
you might be able to.
I would argue against being able to do that.
Yeah, you might be able to dispel it, but like, there's no spell being cast. And so I think it's like nitty gritty, nuts and bolts kind of things like that I see with the class. But like overall, like, it's an Artificer. Like, this is the strong archetype. It belongs in D&D. They make D&D magic items. Like, come on.
I mean, that's why other people make the argument. They're like, well, this doesn't make sense for D&D. I'm like, well, where do you think everything's coming from?
Right.
Where are those protection coming from? Where are all those rods of of MO or whatever?
Who made the soulmonger?
Right.
I would love, and Jim and I talked about this on our podcast. I would love to see like a specialist, like where you specialize in an item. like you're a ring crafter, or you're a rod crafter,
like that, yeah.
a ring for like where that can be another subclass hopefully coming up, with the alchemist and the artillerist. I don't know.
On the invocation remark, I did kind of want one thing, because I fantasize about characters I want to do, and then I was like, well, there's certain high level spells that I'll never be able to cast. I feel like an artificer should eventually be able to cast, and much like the warlock, where you can pick one or two, at higher levels, and well, the bard functions that way as
so
well.
Like a mystic arcanum for the artificer, right?
Yeah, something exactly. Like so I kind of want like clone. Like, maybe even if you hit 18th level, you get to choose any spell from any class.
Oh, sure. Well, and then the third edition artificer had that, right? Third edition could use like almost any spell. So
I like something that is applicable, that makes sense. Like a clone would be like, yeah, of course. Once you're 18th level, I should be able to make clones of me like all over the place. Because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, the Michael Keaton movie.
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about multiplicity.
What? No multiplicity references. What about multiple from X-Men?
What about Orphan Black? All right, I'll update my references.
So it's like with the turret, obviously you have to be down for that particular flavor. I do love the homunculus.
God, I love the homunculus so much.
That is your gremlin. Yeah, it's already like just pure fuel for like.
It's all so many things. Well, and to loop back, speaking of spells that need to be on the artificer spell is the tiny servant, right?
Oh
like that's what. And so at least the homunculus, I can have my own like animated tea set that follows me around and does things for me, or a gremlin, or a creepy doll.
Your own official little robot that passes the butter, because that's your
mini me. Because I grew it, I got it from a basilisk egg, and then I hatched it, and then just cracked it, and then out came myself. This, don't worry.
Yeah, there's a lot of points of like, okay, yeah, you get to like talk about like how did you make this homunculus, and like what is it made of, and like that's the part that like kind of explodes my imagination. And this is also the most versatile class ever. I would argue like easily, and I talked about this on Twitter, you can easily make an entire party of artificers and just be okay.
And
probably murder.
There's some concepts I just want to see if they'll work. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, definitely. But when every concept though has access to 2 attacks on the attack action with possible magic weapons and the possibility of a bonus attack. And on top of that, they all have access to healing. They all have access to some form of shield, whether it's the shield spell or shield of faith from the main list. I mean, like, there's a lot of attack, mobility, and defense spells that are available to the artificer that, like, you can make a powerhouse that you're not gonna like overwhelm anything, but you're gonna be there until the end of the fight. Like, that's my thing with the artificer. Is it's not
third edition's back, baby. Third edition is back.
I don't know that.
Bring on the Godzillas, bring on the God Wizards and the Artificers. Like, sorry, fighters, you guys are out.
I don't know that's overpowered, and I'm actually not necessarily worried that it's overpowered. I do know that it may become my new favorite class, and that's saying a lot. Because I am I'm already in love. I want more intelligence-based classes, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. Just only wizards.
Yeah.
And this is a character who kind of fits nicely into a Constantine character almost. Someone who is just kind of, I mean, not fully. I'd say Constantine is more of a warlock ultimately, but still, this is when you see, if you've divorcing yourself from the comics, if you look at like Constantine the movie, when he's building that gun is Artificer. The way he has definitely weird magical items, and he can, and that's one of the things I do like when it comes to the cantrips, which again, super versatile, is that you can be ready for any situation in the campaign and the Adventure. And again, I'm like, if anyone should have it, it should be the Artificer. This is someone who's constantly tweaking things to his advantage, his or her advantage. And I find it very exciting. How have you guys done the typical WebDM thing of like, how do I make this into a villain?
This
is a solid villain.
Not completely yet, but I almost changed for a main character in my game. I almost changed her from a Forge Cleric to an Artificer.
Yes, yeah.
But the way she kind of works, it's like she really is a Forge Cleric. But I wanted to so bad. But I have thought of a couple of ideas for maybe they're villains, maybe there's antagonists. Yeah. I don't like to put the big V word on them until the party interacts with them.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I have in the game that I run, there's a hello cats. Hi, Monk. It's like a post-apocalyptic Mad Max meets D&D kind of world, and so the Artificer fits like perfectly into it because there's already people crawling and digging through old ruins trying to find magic items to repurpose, and there's already sort of like the idea of like lost magic that's very advanced. Is it even technology or is it magic? I like blurring those lines in my D&D games. I love like adventures like the Lost Laboratory of Kwalish or anything that's like science fantasy, and so something like the Artificer fits right in there because I can say, yeah, this is a villain that has like, they seem to have a variety of like magic items that just do things, and maybe they only work once, so haha, you're not going to ever get them. And there's a kind of MacGyverness to it that you can have kind of a chassis to have an adaptive villain for your campaign, where it's like if the players are like the craziest thing that your villain's ever going to come across, and they're probably not going to survive the process, but an Artificer might, because they're capable of that adaptation and change and like switching things up. So that's where I am. I may or may not have already started working one into the campaign, but I'm not going to say anything else.
What now, Jeremy Crawford did say that for the Artificer. What would you want to see for the next two?
Yeah, you broke.
Sorry, let me repeat that real quick. So Jeremy Crawford did state that these are the first two subclasses for the Artificer. What would you want to see from the next two? I can only assume.
Well, I mean, I already kind of answered that for me. I'd like some kind of magic item specialist, right? Where you can maybe like once per X amount or whatever. You can make a magic item that kind of exists outside of your infused items, and so that way you can like start selling them maybe. But I think it should still adhere to the idea that once the Artificer dies, the magic item like its energy dissipates. Because I love that idea. Like it kind of hangs around a little bit. I don't know. I'm just imagining like a group, a party like taking their Artificer that just passed away, and they're like, we got to use his items for vengeance, like right now, because they know the magic's going to fade. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's such a fun story behind that, like but yeah, like a specialist.
Maybe they stay attuned to them, so you don't even have to attune to them. You just like can use them because the Artificer's magic.
Yeah,
the dying magic of the Artificer. Yeah, like that.
Well, there is that Sauron thing too. I mean, right? Celebrimbor making the rings of power, being able to infuse some, I mean, even being able to infuse some part of yourself into something as like, a Horcrux, if you want to like go a little bit more modern, like an emergency, like I died, but my ring still exists. So, my Horcrux.
Yeah. You take over your homunculus.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a warg in
yeah.
You can warg into your homunculus.
That would be pretty amazing if you're forced to play your homunculus after your turn.
Right.
Well, I would actually prefer to be the homunculus controlling the Artificer.
All right, so here's the question I have, and this is going to be way in the weeds. So I've got my Artificer Warlock, right, Pact of the Chain, and I create my own familiar. Can I have a homunculus improved familiar that I can then use Voice of the Pact Master and all the other kind of stuff with. Like, I don't know if I had a player who sunk that much resources into being able to talk through a gremlin, then I'd be like, sure, whatever.
Yeah, I don't see that. That's not breaking anything, and you've clearly invested in this idea.
yeah. Some of the subclasses, yes, can confirm. Some of the subclasses that I'm looking forward to is I know that people did not like the gunsmith. I know that there are a lot, and it's not in Eberron, right? So it didn't necessarily fit. But I think there is a place for firearms in D&D, like fantasy, like a gun that shoots lightning and other kinds of things. So I like there's like a little sidebar on it in the UA, but it might also be seen like, oh, maybe update that one from the first round at a full class. But personally, I want to see them take the Rune Priest that they floated as a prestige class from a few years ago. Remember, this was before Storm King's Thunder. It was like the first time they introduced the concept of like rune magic. And I think it got like morphed into the rune items that were in Storm King's Thunder. And clearly prestige classes is not where 5th edition's going, but like revise that concept. And I think Artificer is perfect for a runesmith, right? You've already got to focus on tools and the creating of things. And if your magic was inscribing magic runes into objects, engraving them into stone and iron to create your magic items, or inscribing them on pieces of paper that are read or burned or eaten, who knows, right? And like that's your kind of magic. You could like give them heavy armor proficiency, martial weapon proficiency, maybe. I don't know. Paladins and Rangers, they're half-casters too. Anyway, that's kind of subclass I'd like to see.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant because it goes back to the Elf Handbook, actually, back in 2nd edition, where because remember that you could scribe power runes onto items. And so they had lots of sneaky stuff, like, like put up a power word, like, I don't know what it was, like fireball or something on, not power word, but what was it called? Oh my God.
Glyph of warding? Like a glyph of warding.
It was a glyph, glyph.
Yeah.
So you could put the glyph symbol onto like a small clay ball at the end of an arrow and shoot that arrow. So you're shooting fireballs. Yeah. So like if you want to like do some prep, you can just murder, and I kind of like that idea.
Now we've painted the picture of like an obsessive style like mage who's just like going through and inscribing runes of fireball underneath every cup and plate and chair in their house. Because it's like, these adventurers are going to come in here and look at something.
They only need to find one.
Yeah. And then now you got to ask players to not touch anything as they go through a dungeon. But that's a glyph witch is another type that an artificer could do. Like just take that rune magic and just expand it to any form of written magic. Calligrapher's tools used for these things, and they're you're sort of like using this elegant script or something to create your infusion. Read this poem I made; it will heal you. That kind of magic. It's almost like a different take on the bard, because there's some things that bard kind of leans into because they're performance based that you could easily say are more like an artificer because you're creating a thing, not whereas now you might say like oration or something is for bards, but like what if the written word, that's where artificers come in. So I don't know, that's another kind of concept I could see them going with.
Yeah, so far what I notice is it just provokes thought.
Yeah, right. There's a lot like
just like,
someone
so much
that makes
can be done.
golems, right? Like you could just take the idea that you create a homunculus and just make a whole class based on that.
Well, I was just about to say I really love the magical servant from the last one, although it just seemed weird that you just kind of got it and you're working on it and it's only one thing and whatever. But a subclass that it's about that. It's like whether you want to think of them as like large golems or like hell. Now you're getting into like Iron Man territory where you're actually making like a suit, which you can, if you think about like infusing certain items, I mean, you're kind of doing that anyway, like with your outfit, with your infused magic items, you can fly and you can do all these different abilities and stuff. But like something that really like digs down on you craft this thing, like you craft this being or whatever, and you can kind of control it, but it's kind of your thing. And if you want to invest all your time and energy into that thing that could be destroyed, hey, that's fine. You know, I mean, a wizard, if his spell book is destroyed, that kind of sucks for him, doesn't it? So I don't know. I would like something like that, where you're just like you are like an engineer, you're like a mech master or something like that.
Oh yeah, I always want the Iron Man class, and you can to an extent kind of make that argument now a little bit. Like if we bring that turret down to small and we put that on your shoulder, and then you say your gauntlets are infused, and that's how you channel your magic, it works out pretty nicely.
I mean, I did it with a level 1 Tempest Cleric and then the rest in Evoker Wizard, just so I could get the full plate. I mean, I made Iron Man just that way, but you know, this seems much more close to the origin.
I did like that, you know, and he makes, you know, they make the point in Unearthed Arcana, like, listen, you are channeling your magic through your tools of your choice, so you can make the argument that you are shooting fireball out of a gun. So you can get, and that's a very simple solution to the last gunsmith they had. Is like, yeah, you can be a gunsmith, a really cool one, but it's not so explicit. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And you can still have that flavor.
Or people who are kind of like, oh, the old like, there's people who like the old alchemist, right? They like the acid throwing sort of like, I've got a magical tool bag of alchemy potions that I can toss around. And it's like, that's still there. It's just how you flavor it, how you describe it, how you imbue, you know, how you invest it with like meaning and narrative and all that other stuff. So I think
acid splash is still tossing acid.
It's same with acid arrow and all other times. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Let's see. Have you guys read Keith Baker's thoughts on the class?
No, I have
his
not.
blog. His blog is incredibly insightful. For anytime anything Eberron related is released, I head over to his blog because he usually has a post about it. And his post on the Artificer was like eye-opening because the way he sort of looks at it, and he leans really heavily into this is about player in, making something of this class. They have to interpret things. They've got to work with their dungeon master, but it offers like a lot of guidelines for how you would play this class and how it would fit into the world. That I almost think is like, if you love this class, you got to read this blog. I'll find it and post it real quick, because it's like really, really great in terms of a companion piece to the Unearthed Arcana article. Let's see.
This does also fit nicely into multiple settings. Like this, I know, people can think of this as only being for Eberron, but it's not. Like this works very well for this works very well. If you wanted to go back to the Dragonlance setting and the gnomes, from there.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, this could clearly be a mad scientist in Ravenloft. So what I do like is that, I'm really glad that not everyone has a giant hulking robot machine automatically if you're an artificer. And now that if you have a companion creature or entity or mechanical device, that's largely up to you because of the subclass you chose. So I think that's very, very smart in that. Well, are you going to be playing artificers yourself based on this?
Probably. But going back to the whole whether or not it fits, I mean, if you look at what D&D is based off of, the era in which our own, are in our own history, and just look up like actual automatons that were created in that time. Like clockwork automaton, and like, now tell me how a dwarf can't create that except, wait, there's magic also to help with this. Like it fits completely. Like I'm sorry, but it's what would have happened in our own world had magic existed, because we created this kind of shit anyway.
Yeah, and automatons showed up fairly early. So having them like. Yeah, having any type of magic. And when you look at like really popular video games, whether you want to look at, any video game like Styx or Thief or Elder Scrolls Online, which has plenty of turrets, basically. Kind of crab-like spiders. Warcraft, Rift, like so many fantasy games are not, this is part of it. This is part of fantasy, and it's a natural
sort of
fit.
It's kind of like I do think that there's a tension between the people who want like thatched hut, mud roof, like low grade kind of fantasy, and then those who like the more kitchen sink, gonzo to varying degrees. And I think the fact that D&D accommodates both is a feature, whereas like others sort of see it as a bug. It's like, oh, it should be all one way. And it's like, if there's room for low level, low magic, then there's room for something like the Artificer, which like ramps up the magic and like demands that you accommodate this class in your game world, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to allow it in there, it's sort of like the cleric or something like a warlock or something, where it's like this is a part of a world here. And fighter is like fighter, they're blank slate by design. They can fit in almost anywhere and be kind of like that, but you really got to like work to fit this in. And I think like the fact that Eberron is used as inspiration and it came out of this is because Eberron has a strong flavor and theme. Like this is what this game's about. And so you'll have to like do some massaging to make sure that Artificer fits with that, unless you just want to go with like Artificer is just the guy that does magic with tools. Like how's that any different than the person that does magic with song, or the person that does magic with books, or the person that does magic just because they're like really personality, they're like just likable.
They were born into it. I mean, I honestly find the Artificer to be less disruptive than say a divine soul sorcerer who can cast any spell from anywhere and is also the chosen one.
Right, it suggests a whole bunch of things about your world. They're like, oh, really? We're doing demigods now? And
I mean,
but it's not for every group, right? Like warlocks aren't for every table. Druids aren't for every table. There's some, so I think like dinging and people like saying like, well, it's not for every group. It's like, well, duh, neither are barbarians or paladins or.
I find it less weird than the bard. And I have been playing D&D since the beginning. Like, let's face it, the bard is very specifically regionally countryside Welsh magic.
Right,
like, you could probably name the village that the bard came from in terms of mythology.
Yes. Taking niche and turning it into ubiquity is
exactly. Yeah, that's what the part is.
Yeah, but like the whole idea of like people wanting like, oh, it's this world is thatched roof, blah blah blah. It's like no entire worlds, civilizations are a monolith though. I mean, like in our own world today, there are people that live in the jungle and have had no contact with outsiders, and yet there are other cultures sending rovers to Mars. So when you want to talk about like an Artificer that can create, can just kind of do this thing with some mechanical know-how. It's like, it's not that astounding of a leap to me. It's just it's the question of will, Todd. Do we have the will to do it?
It is, but I mean, again, that's why I love the questions, the conversations that could get provoked by this. I think these two subclasses are very daring. I don't know which one I would choose to play myself right now. it's I love the artillerist, but man, it is hard not to have your own gremlin. Just running around, spitting acid at people, healing.
Number one.
I almost just kind of wish that there was just a little bit more that the turret could do. Just when you look at like all the range of things, because I see that they tried to split the mechanical servant and give each side a little bit different take on it, but I don't know. I think the turret is a little bit too limited in its abilities versus the homunculus, but I see why they did it, I guess.
Man, and also if you want to get through Tomb of Horrors, get some Artificers. Artificers are like the Black Ops team of D&D right now. They can set up all the traps. They can. Yeah,
they've got that versatility. I think for me, like the subclass that I want to play for the Artificer hasn't been made yet, and like I like the homunculus and I like what the alchemist has going on, and I'd probably go that before artillerist. I think the artillerist is a little scattered. I don't mind the turret. There's million different ways you can reskin it to be something that's not like a little spidery turret that walks around. But like I want the wand mage right? Like it's kind of there in artillerists, but I want like I dual wield triple wands, right? Like I made a thing that ties them all together, and I you know. Or like that scene in
It's got a
Boondock Saints where come
shooter
out like
with
wands
6
down
wands just on the rotisserie.
yeah.
A Gatling gun of wands. We just
Yeah.
It's what's like one of those monkey grinder things, more like, you know, come on. You gotta give them
easily
anyway.
can do the rune again. Do the rune mage on each bullet.
Yeah.
You draw a rune.
Oh my god, each bullet, yes.
Yeah.
So
I thought about that a long time. Because like Averyn, my character Averyn went from ranger to artificer. Warlock made the most sense, but now I'm like, oh, he's going back to artificer. Probably
that's
just because
I had a player who went from ranger to artificer as well. They're like, it just fits better, like thematically. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, because it has that because I'm looking for that character who's just kind of like breaking it all. Like he's just kind of figuring out ways to get around. I'd love to see an artificer that can make a magical device that can also do the Horizon Walker thing where it can find portals, get a little that planeswalking kind of element to it, but that's very specific. But yeah, I've always wanted someone with a gun that has each bullet. Kind of like Rumor Mass Effect, you could have like the fire effect or the ice effect. Or Judge Dredd's gun, basically.
Oh god.
Yeah.
That's
where
double whammy.
I also like a Ghostbusters proton pack kind of thing. Like I start getting sort of like, all right, I can take a handful of pebbles and I crank a thing, and then they like go through several transmutations and then shoot out the end as, I don't know, something random. Like that's my Chaos Bolt spell.
It's kind of your opportunity as a player to be a little bit DM in terms of imagination, I think. So I am pretty excited about that. We do have several questions.
Yes.
And the first one we have is from Ad El Cove. Would you like to see a well-executed artificer where the speciality is magical armor, power armor? We have already said yes. We all would love to see that.
I'm gonna go with yes.
There is power armor in the game, thanks to that Lost Laboratory adventure. So you can actually have legit power armor.
Anyway, that's right.
Not salivating
that's a good
over
point.
it at all.
Need some space.
Make sure you apply.
Yeah, it is technically a magic item now, so. Anyway,
this is from Searaker. Question: do you miss the Master Maker Artificer from 3.5? I am not actually intimately familiar with the Master Maker Artificer.
If I'm remembering, it's like the one that was like leaned into the Artificer as magic item creator. If I'm remembering right. I think I played in a game where someone was played one of those. I played a wizard, and I was, 3rd edition wizard, about like you expect.
I just Googled it right quick. It's the one where you can create like advanced constructs and like iron defense and all that.
Oh, so that'd be really awesome. I'd love to see that. Yeah. I'd like to see a class that can make things or have a pet that's more than like a medium thing. Like I'd like to see something where it's like, I made this huge thing.
Yeah, a murder bot.
And I don't know how to do that without opening up the door to all the problems that causes, because there are players and groups where that just doesn't work for them, and it creates like havoc.
Unless you get one of the players to buy in as it's someone's creation, which is interesting. I play an NPC for my wife's artificer. She's a gnome, but she has her companion character is named Rend, who was formerly called Murderbot and not so bright. But he's basically a Warforged, a giant simplistic Warforged who is like Forge domain cleric, but in philosophy and gears and creation and that kind of thing. And so he doesn't prescribe to a god, and he's kind of terrifying in that way as well to everyone else. So that works. Well, in the world of D&D where all the gods are hanging out, and you're like, and you decide to go philosophy cleric, and I love philosophy clerics. I find them super entertaining to play.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. So next question is: are there any other 3rd edition classes or subclasses you'd like to see return?
I I really liked from what was it, the Book of Nine Swords? I know it was kind of at the end, but I love the Crusader from Book of Nine Swords. Kind of a more like a holy champion that's not quite a paladin. It's not a cleric, but I don't know. I played one for just a little bit, and I had so much fun with that particular.
I played them for about 10 levels, and they were pretty. The fact that you could delay taking damage till the end of your turn. Right, so you could you delayed when and then how much damage you had stored up gave you bonuses to things, and then you could
it's a very samurai thing to do. Yeah.
Use all your bonuses and heal yourself up. Now I didn't take that damage, and then it was very durable in that regard. Any of the Book of Nine Swords stuff I would see just because I really like. I really like
Floki from Vikings kind of thing.
I would also look outside of official D&D products and say, like, I would love to see an update to Iron Heroes for 5th edition. Iron Heroes is probably one of my favorite 3rd edition products because of just the philosophy of how to present all of these different martial archetypes in a certain way, and like really digging into the feat structure of 3rd edition. Of course, Mike Merle's worked on that. It'd be nice that'd be something that I'd like to see. Other than that, I think maybe what were the classes that used it was like Magic of Incarnum. Was that the Tome of Magic for 3rd edition where like you had vestiges, and there was like a trio of classes built around this supplement. My brain is way too foggy.
Tome of Magic had Elementalists. I'd bring back Elementalists, but I think that's kind of covered by sorcerers to an extent.
Sorcerer or druid, right? Like you could easily do an elementalist with either sorcerer or druid.
I don't think that element is missing. I kind of miss the old wild mage, but the old wild mage was pretty. Again, Artificer not even close to being as destructive as a wild mage.
No. What was the spell where it's like I cast this spell, and then if I survive it, I can cast any spell I want, kind of. You know.
Also, I was playing I ruined Ravenloft because I was playing a wild mage in Ravenloft, and at that time in 3rd edition. It was Tome of Magic. Oh, it was second edition. We're like on the hilltop, and Strahd zombies are attacking us, and I like actually force a chaos roll, and we lost all our items and we're naked.
Ooh. Well, yeah.
So not really on Ravenloft theme, but certainly a horrible nightmare of a situation. So, I mean, you can't be talking to Strahd and just turn blue. I mean, you can if that's what you want.
Possible.
Usually happens after you talk to Strahd. Yeah.
Fair enough. This question is how many items can the Artificer have at one time? I'm assuming magical items, and I think that's determined by your level. So that's
well, they got rid of the incremental attunement slot increases, so it's like all comes in at the end now. So you'll have up to 6 attunement slots at the higher level, but I think up until then you only have 3 attunement, and then as many unattuned items as you can reasonably carry on your person, I guess.
I don't. That's such a. I feel like that's such a situational specific thing. How many things you can be attuned to? I think it's great that they can. I don't feel like that's a super powerful end game. I mean, it can be, I guess, because once you're at 18th level, you have access to powerful things.
We played in the game where we increased the attunement slots so that they equaled our proficiency bonus. And so, like, number one, it starts off kind of, you only have 2 for the longest time. That kind of like puts a throttle on things. But I didn't find afterwards, like once we started getting above 3 attunement slots, that it was like game breaking or anything.
So you were
DMing that campaign. What'd you think? You didn't think?
No, it was just fine. Like, I don't know. Y'all had all the items that you wanted, and nothing ever felt broken. I didn't have to like alter anything. I don't know. I find the whole 3 attunement slots thing like it's whatever. But it goes along with what they've tried to do with 5th edition, right? They're trying to level out the math and level out the playing field all the way across the board. And that's a nice broad way to do it. But I mean, if a table wants to implement some kind of house rule, I highly recommend it because it does not break the game in our experience.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think if anyone deserves more slots, Artificer, but I don't know that it's like a really end game ability to have multiple magical items.
It's the sort of the combination with like the more toolset slots, and then you get like the +1 to your saves on all of it. But it as far as like capstone features go, like I don't know how many 20th level artificers do you think that are being played out there right now?
Right.
Like,
whereas
one,
I can daydream about getting cloned.
Listen, number one, we can daydream about getting cloned. Or two, that just means we need to have a game of 5 20th level artificers that take on. You could do like Mad Dungeon of the Mad Mage in reverse order. Start at the bottom and work your way to the top. See how far you can get without taking a long rest. But
I am definitely running a game of just artificers. I'm just doing it. I think it's going to be amazing, and I think it's probably going to be very much like the Black Ops team of like, okay, these
or like the suicide spots to fill. I'm sure we can
squad of like, together and like have to take on like these problems, you know.
Yes, fixers.
Let's build our way out of this.
It's
them and rogues. I think rogues and Artificer groups make a lot of sense to me.
Oh yeah, they seem like a natural fit.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't see a band of sorcerers hanging out, right? You know, and I don't really see a bunch of clerics hanging out without lots of comical. I mean, Lauren Urban, our community manager, ran Clerical Error, and that's very comical to have like everyone, every cleric coming from a point of view.
Right,
it's a great name.
Yeah, but yeah, I like that kind of group mentality. Let's see. Okay, we got a new question. Marine 2874. What would you think about expanding the artillerist and giving them access to additional turrets that they get to choose when they reach a certain level, like a turret that shoots lightning, a turret that shoots ice shards, etc.? I mean, I would build that in ahead of time, I think. I don't think that you would have to wait till level to get that.
No, I don't think so. I think you could switch up the damage type. I think you could probably give them an extra turret sooner. I don't think it's, especially if they're not scaling already. I didn't look at the I don't have it in front of me right now. That extra turret that you do get, does that mean you get 2 turrets?
No, you
get 2 turrets.
Yeah,
you get a second turret.
But doesn't it take your bonus action to activate it and cause it to attack?
I believe they both attack with it.
With the bonus action.
I've got it handily enough. There's a website out there that has like a whole bunch of stuff related to 5th edition.
Yeah, maybe I should have that open, but right now I don't want to like interrupt my internet connection any more than I have.
Yeah, I would assume that's the thing, is the language on it is a little vague, but to me it would be like when you have the second turret out, if you say attack that guy, then they both start shooting at that person.
So here I got it pulled up here. So this is the 14th level ability. It says you can also now summon a second turret for free and must finish a long rest before doing so again. If you summon the second turret while the first is still present, the first one doesn't disappear, and each turret can be of a different type. If you summon a third turret, the first one vanishes. Moreover, you can use 1 bonus action to activate both turrets. I would take that to mean that one bonus action, the turret, you can command each turret to do something different. You get 2 for 1. So like they don't even need to attack the same thing. They could attack.
Otherwise, what's the point, really?
What's the point? Yeah. But it's clear it's like, okay, I have my defense and attack out, or double attack. It's D&D, so offense is usually never a bad choice. That's how I'd roll it.
They're also like the Artificer is also kind of a base builder, but with the turret, why I don't mind the turrets is like you can have that Aliens moment of 2 turrets blaring away at like a horde of goblins. You can buy your team time
Yeah.
to just like, fill the hallway with flame and run. Like this is the first
Right.
time you're really getting that kind of class that can just be like, okay, this is the defensive. Let's prepare.
Yes.
for
Yeah, if you've got the time
them to
prepare,
come
yeah.
to us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can't have those
Helm's
defensive
Deep could have
scenarios.
used a few artificers.
Oh, certainly, right. And to counteract the artificers on the Uruk-hai side with their fire bombs and everything, right?
Yeah. Basically, Uruk-hai had the artificers. Yeah.
They were running their turrets into the hole to explode.
Yeah.
They're just holding-
Olympic torch style. I love that scene. I will love that scene forever. That's his big day.
Know what they're going for. It is his big day.
That's his big day. That guy,
Yeah.
he's the big winner in all of this. He's just like the guy that stood out there. Like, you know what? This guy's got it. He's got the enthusiasm. He's got the running know-how. Like,
Hero.
he looks happy, and he's got a special helmet too. They gave him a special helmet just for that day.
He's gonna go out on top. I
want to role play that guy's back. I want the prequel that Amazon is doing to be about that.
His backstory.
One guy.
Got a lot of cat butt. Cat butt on this live stream.
Always.
Get it out of my face.
Always. Pruitt's cats are very aggressive with their affection.
He's just upset. I normally don't get on stream on this day like this, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing? This isn't in the contract."
How dare you? Here's another good question is, what are your thoughts on the Artificer's spell list? Any gripes? Any that should be added or be removed?
I've
Jim,
got some.
You already put forth your big one, which I completely agree with.
Well, yeah, I think there's for one, like Xanathar. I hope that in the finalized version, Xanathar's spells are on the list. I know why they wouldn't be. They don't want to assume anyone who plays the game has all of the books, but I think it's worth. It's worth Tiny Servant. Come on, guys. Like, it's Tiny Servant. Or Chaos Bolt, right? Like, a Chaos Bolt's another one I can see being an Artificer one because it's this random spell that jumps between targets if it does max damage or something. It's like a great sort of, I don't know what this machine does, but I made it last night kind of spell. So I hope that at least those two, and then overall Xanathar's comes in. But I think, to me, like, the things that I think about when I look at the casting or when I look at the spell list are less like individual spells that are missing other than clone, which is a perfect one, is like what am I looking at here in terms of, like, say, the casting times on these spells? Am I, as a DM or a player, going to want to, like, alter any of them? Like, how do I make these effects, which is really what we're looking at? Like, we want to produce these effects fit my theme of an Artificer. So, like, that's where I would approach it from. And if after that there's like some glaring omissions, then I might just talk to my DM and be like, hey, like, these two spells would be really appropriate for the kind of Artificer I want to make. I don't know.
Storm Sorcerer is one I have the most umbrage of not having Call Lightning.
Right.
I just can't work my mind around why.
Like, especially that first pass they had it through bonus spells, which they gotta have Call Lightning. I think, to me, the other big one I looked at was, like, Pruitt and I did a fairly, like, looked at arcane weapon, magic weapon, and elemental weapon as spells. And arcane weapon is one of those where it's like, yeah, my Bladesinger might be taking Magic Initiate Artificer for this spell. Like, it's that good. So it's an interesting addition. I always like it when new spells are added to the game. I love them. But it's also kind of like, I can see Hexblades and Bladesingers and Valor Bards who are in a position to pick it up, actually, like, really loving this spell.
Also, being able to create a Hexblade that returns to you, it gets pretty.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dirtiness. I mean, again, not overpowered, but yeah. I mean, I always love thrown weapons that come back to you. So, do you like?
You need some thrown weapon love in a bad way. Outside of Jarlaxle's bracers, what do we got?
Yeah.
I'm sorry not to take this tangent and just completely derail into the fucking ditch. Pardon the language, but why don't we have a thrown class? I'm sorry. Throwing weapon
point.
is like people have been throwing weapons. It's the first weapon. One of the first. Pick up a rock, throw it. There you go. You just created a thrown weapon class, right? Like we did this from the beginning. The reason why sports exist so people can stay good at these things that we need, these talents. Anyway, sorry. Let's bring it back.
I'm going to take what you said to heart. I'm going to start working on a thrown subclass today based on just the first rock that was thrown.
There you go. Yeah. Barbarian thrower.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God. I guess the barbarian throw. Yeah.
Pick up huge, because then you need to work up to picking up like people. Start doing fastball specials, just like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's your attack. You damage people by throwing them. That's your Hulk moment.
Yeah. You literally throw people and they take the damage from being thrown. There you go.
Yes.
Especially if you're like actually a tiny character like a hobbit or a halfling. Like you're just like there's a tiny little guy and you just like pick up people and throw them. Like you have an advantage on strength checks, so none of them preventing a halfling from getting super buff and ripped.
Halfling barbarian.
I'm seeing here on chat real quick. Don't mean to interrupt y'all's halfling throwing the walls conversation, but like someone's saying, Atelier Bone saying, I think they should not have Thorn Whip on their list. Nothing about it says tinkered, and I would say, if you're looking at Thorn Whip as a vine that grows and is used,
but you reskin it.
But you reskin it. It's a steel whip that retracts in and out, or maybe it's a weird potion that you drop on the ground and creates a temporary vine that reaches out, retracts, and then withers. Or your finger grows extra long because you're messing with your bones and muscles.
That's like the soundest thing more, but gross.
That's how I would reskin that as an example.
Yeah.
Or you've given yourself a concoction that allows your insanely long mustache hairs to like go out and grab people.
For one. All right. So that means that barber's tools are your tools, right? Comb, scissor, you got to pick your spells. Oh, where's the spell list? God, why'd you do this to me, Pruitt?
Barber surgeon.
Hair mage.
Straight razor wizard is very. Straight razor artificer is very scary.
First off, dagger is already the only finesse weapon, melee weapon that's on there. So you can have daggers. You go dex.
What's her name from Mortal Kombat in the purple suit with the hair?
Katara?
I
don't remember.
Anyway, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Those games. Those were too bloody, Pruitt. Don't you remember? They ripped people's spines out of their back in those games.
Yeah, they did.
Well, we are out of time. I will say that I think this class, more than any other, invites the players to imagine, to reskin, to have conversations with their dungeon master and their players. I think this is the most inventive and imaginative class, arguably, in D&D, and I actually very much like where it's going for me personally so far, and I'm definitely very curious about the next two. So yes. I am fairly Artificer obsessed, and I love the fear. Like, wait, what if you do this and this and this with other people, and is it how do you break the game with this? I'm like, I like a little bit of I like a little bit of chaos. I don't want things to just be bland and perfectly balanced. I am not Thanos. Yeah. We don't. This is not a PvP game. So it's okay for things to be a little crazy. Thank you so much, Jonathan Pruitt and Jim Davis of WebDM. Real quick, do you guys want to pitch anything you're working on currently?
I will say you need to come over to Tales from the Grim this coming Sunday. We're doing a little bit of a Highlander using the Cypher system, but it's my first episode where I actually get to play, and so we will have a little bit of PvP in there because, as we all know, there can be only one.
Yeah, that's the theme. Mr. Jim Davis?
Nothing in particular other than, we're playing some D&D over on our Twitch channels on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We've got a Sunday vampire game going on using Cypher system that's going to be coming back next week, I think. And we're just still chatting about stuff and talking D&D on our YouTube channel. So we're in a good stretch. here. I'm actually kind of good. I don't have any big projects, so I'm like, that's a weight off my shoulders right now. Anyway,
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking about the Artificer. I always love having you two on. It's always good to break this stuff down. It's like therapy for me. It's like D&D therapy.
Oh,
So, all right. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you so much. Have a great day.